ado, we'll kind of kick this meeting off here at 5:02. I hope everybody had a chance to review the agenda that I sent out and some of those attached documents. I just wanted to first call the meeting to order and then do some brief introductions. So I'll start. My name is Jordan Alina. I am the development manager for the City of Independence, and I'll be working with you guys as the staff liaison, I think, for the most part. And then I'll let Tom Scannell with the city also introduce himself, and then we'll go around and let those board members introduce themselves as well.
Good afternoon. My name is Tom Scannell. I'm the Community Development Director.
And just to make it a little bit easier, I will go ahead and kind of call you out and let you guys just do a little introduction for yourself. So Paul, why don't you go first?
Paul Callahan. I'm retired from Cargill, senior financial analyst, and I'm enjoying retirement. I've lived in Independence most of my life. Graduate of Van Horn High School as well as CMSU in Warrensburg. So,
great. John, how about you yourself?
Sure. My name is John Kyger. I'm an architect. Work down in Kansas City, but I live at roughly Blue Ridge and Hardy. And I grew up in the neighborhood and moved away for school for a while, and then lived in Kansas City and moved back. So it's an interesting neighborhood. It's been in transition for quite a while, and part of our discussions here, I think, too, of what happens. So.
Okay, great. Laura, you want to go next?
John, I think we live around the corner from each other. I'm at 35th and Blue Ridge Boulevard, and I might have seen you walk your dog occasionally. Very good, very good. I'm Laura Dominic, lived in the neighborhood about 20 years in Independence. My background, CPA, paramedic, Great Plains SPCA, Chief Administration, and now I own Heartland DNA, where I do paternity testing primarily.
See, Lance, do you want to go next?
Sure. My name is Lance Stout. I'm a deputy superintendent for the Independence School District. This is it's hard to believe, but beginning my 8th year in the school district. Originally from Southwest Kansas, but very happy and proud to be a community member of Independence.
All right. Crystal, you want to go next?
Sure. My name is Crystal Luganville. I am a human resources professional, and I live at 35th and Arlington. So I think I've seen you walk your dog as well. And I have lived in Independence most of my life, short stint outside of Independence, but I came back and I'm now a proud homeowner.
Great. Greg?
My name's Greg Finke. Lifelong Independence resident, member of the Independence School District Board of Education, and Lance and I also serve on the city's economic development incentive as a representative of the school district. And one of the reasons I got involved with the schools was because of the impact that the school district and the revitalization has had in this part of the town in particular, and look forward to that partnership going forward.
All right, and Karen.
Hi, I'm Karen Graves. I'm an attorney and I am still working, albeit from home. I am from New York originally, and I've been living in Independence for about 20 years now. So I'm really excited about the work that this board has set out to do.
Great. Well, thank you everybody for taking time to meet today. As you can see from the agenda, this is just kind of going to be an introductory meeting, give you guys a chance to ask some questions if you have it, and then hope to get a second meeting scheduled here within a week or two to kind of take some of those first initial steps in getting this board off the ground and running. And, after that, we'll kind of take things as it goes. So I'm just going to start with a general sort of overview of the broad Southwest Independence 353. And Tom, feel free to jump in if you have anything to add. I'm going to just kind of touch the highlights. I know you guys have had some of these documents to review, so I'm not going to go over every point. I just kind of want to hit some of the highlights. So the 353 plan is going to be our broad justification for why we chose this area for a 353 tax abatement program. It's going to be kind of our guidepost going forward. And just for history, for those of you who haven't been following this, the council and, as Greg said, the Independence Economic Development Incentives Commission, it's a long one, reviewed this plan at the end of last year. In November, the EDIC approved this plan. And then in December, the city council approved the plan. So the council and that commission have taken action on this to approve it. And I think that was the culmination of over a year's worth of work studying this area, and kind of trying to figure out what the best course of action is to offer a tax abatement program. Let's see. Okay, so those groups also saw the proposed guidelines that you all were forwarded yesterday, that was just sort of for information. So they have not approved those guidelines. That is one of the things that this commission or this group is going to have to wrestle with, is reviewing those and final approving those so that we can start accepting applications for tax abatement. Let's see. So I just kind of want to go through some of the history of 353 tax abatement in the city. The city has several other tax abatement programs, including the Midtown Truman Road tax abatement, Fairmount Carlisle, and the St. Clair Park 353s. And all of those programs are very similar in the fact that they had a long abatement window, and they all had the same pretty much requirements to participate. And I would say those, and Tom, you can kind of jump in here. I would say those were successful on an individual property level at incentivizing redevelopment and really seeing properties improved. However, I think we would say overall, they didn't have the impact on the overall neighborhoods that maybe were hoped. Tom, would that be a fair characterization?
Yeah, and I would add that the Midtown Truman Road corridor, that was one of the first 353s, and that one had a larger neighborhood impact, primarily because it had some backing from some TIF dollars that helped it to revitalize the area around the historic square and the Independence Regional Center Hospital. But the Fairmount Carlisle and St. Clair Park, they've been successful for those property owners who took advantage of those. And like Jordan said, it didn't have that neighborhood transformational change that we were looking at. And so that was one of the things that we tried to do with putting this plan together. And through the help of the EDIC, they really directed us in ways that were maybe those other plans might have maybe missed the mark. The EDIC kind of guided this plan towards having that investment in infrastructure that is equal to some of the taxes that are abated. The city stepped up and said we can do that. So it's kind of that public-private partnership with this one that some of the other tax abatements did not have.
Okay, so I briefly wanted to touch on kind of why, knowing that the city has experience with 353 tax abatement, why we chose this area of the city. And I think it really comes down to the relatively high home ownership rate that exists in this area, as well as, the maintaining an increase in population, evidenced by the brand new school that the school district built there, and some of those positive changes and positive investments that we're seeing. So it's an area of town that, still has a lot to offer, and, with some reinvestment can really turn that corner and not continue a slide maybe into more rental property and continue that sort of homeowner focus. Just to say, so the timing is that to kind of capture this neighborhood before it, those numbers continue to change where it's predominantly renter as opposed to predominantly homeowner occupied. So I did want to touch on some of the other things that we learned from those other plans and that we've incorporated into this tax abatement. So what we found with those other tax abatement programs is those were very long programs, and you would have people, sign up for tax abatement, do the work on their house, and then within the time span of that tax abatement, they would turn around and sell it. And so with this program, we've decided to focus on a much more narrow window for applications. We're taking applications for 10 years, and then the tax abatement window for all tiers is for 7 years. So, and that, looking at the numbers, I think, Tom, that was kind of the average length that people were staying in their house more or less after they were, had participated in a tax abatement program. So we didn't have to worry about tracking a new owner who wasn't aware of the fact that they would have to maintain these improvements that they had done after a change in ownership. I think also some of the work that was allowed to happen in the other programs, was valuable work. It was like, in replacing an HVAC system or remodeling a bathroom, but they weren't focused on the exterior of the home or mitigating blight. And that was something that we really wanted to focus on with this program. So targeting those properties that have a damaged roof or a damaged sidewalk or driveway, and requiring those types of projects to be done first. Those other projects inside the house are eligible, but they're eligible after some of those external projects have also been tackled, is sort of the way we're focusing on this. Another item where we sort of switched focus is this program does not incentivize the addition of new rental units. So if there's an existing rental unit, tax abatement could be offered in order to remodel or fix up that rental unit. But really the goal with this program is, like we said before, to encourage home ownership. And in fact, if possible, to incentivize turning those rental properties into owner occupied units. And then the final thing, and Tom kind of touched on this, is that other than Midtown Truman Road, there was no correlating city investment that was sort of offset by the tax abatement that was granted. So one thing that is included in this is the city has agreed to dollar for dollar match any tax abatement that is offered. The city will put that money back into the geographic bounds of this district in the form of infrastructure improvements. So that's one thing that we as staff are going to be doing as we move down this road, is to keep track of what is abated tax-wise, and so that the city can track that and start to reinvest those dollars back into this neighborhood, which I think is an important component. And so that kind of touches on the lessons we learned and sort of how we ended up with the format of this plan. And so I just briefly, you guys have probably already looked at it, but I want to touch on the 3 tiers that are outlined in the plan. The lowest tier requires that a property owner will invest up to at minimum 10% of the property value of their property value. And in exchange for that level of investment, they will receive a property tax freeze for the 7 years of tax abatement. The second tier requires a minimum of 25% investment by a property owner, and that will earn them, if this body chooses to approve it, a 25% abatement on the increase in property value. So the change from where it was when they applied to any future increases, a 25% abatement for that 7 years. And then the final tier is really targeted at those completely, new investment, new building, or tearing down a building and replacing a home. And that is a one for properties where investment is more than 100% of the previous value. That would be a 100% abatement on that increase. Again, we're looking at what it was when they applied and what the increase is after the construction or reconstruction of that previous property. Laura?
I'm sorry, I didn't know if I should stop you when I have questions, or should we
Oh, that's
save them
fine.
until you're done?
No,
Okay.
go for it.
Just a couple things that, when you were commenting back about the city making the dollar for dollar reinvestment back into the infrastructure in the area, when I read the development plan, it says the City of Independence and the school district will match dollar for dollar the investment made. Is that?
I think the intent of that was just to say that the city worked with the school district, and that was one of their requests for this. So they're not, I don't believe the school district is intending to make any additional investment. It was just an agreement between the school district and the city for their agreement with the project, basically, to move forward.
Okay, so I might be confused on the language. I'll make a note of that and send it to you and ask you that question a little further just on the language to understand that.
Okay.
And I hope my questions don't sound ridiculous, but just in general on the tiers, so the value of the property that we're basing the 10, 25, 100 on is at the time they apply, correct?
That is correct.
Obviously. Okay. So let's just say, for instance, let's just say the value of my home alone on my property is $80,000. I apply for this. I don't get the project done for the next 4 years. In the meantime, my property has gone from 80 to 85,000. Now, without the improvements, I do the improvements. Talk about dollars there.
Yeah.
You see what I'm asking? Like,
yeah.
Obviously, I don't stay at 80 because I'm at 85
Yeah.
once I got all this done.
Right.
Or
So I think you're right. I think it would be more correct to say when the project is complete. So the way, and we'll get in this as we get further down the road, the way we review this is that the work has been, basically they've showed us receipts and estimates for the work. So yeah, you're right. We would want to make sure that we're looking at a pre-improvement cost or evaluation by the county and not, like you said, if the project takes 4 years and there's just otherwise property tax increases over that time, or assessment increases, I guess.
Right. So I guess my question, maybe I didn't ask it. It's obviously based on when you apply. We have to draw the line somewhere. And then, like, say right now, of course, the county's not going to reassess for another, year or so. We've already, wherever we at on our 2-year span. If I get reassessed to $84,000 before I still get my project done, that increase stays with me. I mean, I don't ever go back to 80,000 because now you're at 84 before you did the fit. Okay. I think that's probably a simplistic question that I asked there, but I just wanted to understand. Okay. And this is also, I'll ask this one in the same vein of, this is probably a stupid question, but on tier 3, so yeah, I have my house is fine to live in, but I decide I want to do this 100% thing. So I can tear my house down and rebuild a home. Let's go again with the 80,000. I go in and build a $100,000 home, right? So then again, I am only abated at the $20,000 increment that I put into that brand new home, right?
Yes, assuming that that's the increase that the county assessed.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And again, I'm using kind of the simple numbers, but I have to have had a house there first because it refers to new construction, but I can't just have owned a lot and my value of my improvements was 0. Now I go in and put a $100,000 house on it. You're not going to get an abatement on a $100,000 house, right? I think that's being very stupid. Is the question?
You could, however, that would be to this board to make that decision. I mean, we would encourage infill development on, residential lots that are vacant. And so that would be a case where they would potentially receive quite a good tax abatement. But again, we're talking about shorter timeframes. We're talking about 7 years versus 15 years or whatever the other program was. So again, that would be a discussion for this board. But yes, we would allow, based on, preliminary what we've written down, but you guys haven't reviewed yet, would allow an infill brand new on a lot that's just for some reason hadn't developed.
Okay. And then there was one phrase on page 10 where it says, any proposed residential project valued at greater than the average home value in Independence, obviously is determined by Jackson County, must receive additional approval. Do we know what that average is? And what does additional approval mean? What else are we going to base a decision on?
So I don't have that number right now. I think at the time it was, what was it?
110,000. It was 110,000.
110,000. Yes.
Yeah.
At the time, those numbers are something we'll have to, pin down with
nail down.
Yeah. So that was sort of left vague for that purpose, but the intention is that if a project comes in at a property that's below that value, not to say that it would be administratively approved, but that it would automatically qualify for tax abatement, and you guys would, make sure it checks all the boxes and move that through the process. Otherwise, and what that additional approval is will be up to you guys. But basically, that we would want as a group to discuss more, see if that project really is, a valuable project that kind of meets the goals of that plan. So that's one of those moving targets for now that we, as we continue to move forward, will have to decide. I will also say it has similar language in there for commercial properties as well, because there are some commercial properties. This program is really targeted at residential redevelopment. However, the way it's written, commercial projects are eligible to apply, but again, this board would give those projects, more of a look to see if there's a value, if they see that value. So again, at this point, it's however you guys choose to want to evaluate those more. And so that's going to be an ongoing discussion.
Okay, I think I may have questions, but I'll hold for now. That gets me a lot further. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Any other questions, or shall I move on? All right. Hearing none. Let's see. We already touched on this. So the window for applications will be 10 years. One of the things that I have on here later to discuss, this was approved by City Council at the end of 2019. All good plans go awry when pandemics happen. So we were hoping to take applications much earlier in the year and have a board seated and go through this process. So one of the decisions you will have to make is how far back do we want to go to take applications? Our initial thought was that if this had started January 1, 2020, we would go back to projects completed after January 1st, 2019. So we would get one whole year prior to this being implemented. And now, because there was no way for anyone to apply because we didn't have a board and, the pandemic got in the way, we will obviously accept projects in the calendar year 2020 up to this point.
So you meant 1/1/20, not 1/1/19.
No, I did mean 1/1/20. In the past, when a project was, or when a 353 was implemented, they've gone back one calendar year before to take projects that would otherwise have qualified, but just happened to be done before it was, available.
Gotcha.
And as I said before, commercial projects would be eligible technically. However, they would be subject to this board's additional scrutiny and approval.
Can I ask a question while you're looking there? You did mention, before that it was longer, and so you wanted to kind of narrow that window down to 7 years because of people buying new houses, selling their houses and that type of thing. It does transfer though, correct?
It does.
To a new owner. Okay. Just wanted to verify.
Okay. So looking at my notes, that kind of covers the broad pieces I wanted to touch about the plan. Are there any other questions related to that? Like I said before, the plan is going to be the broad document that we're using to kind of get the spirit of what we're working toward as a group. So, all right.
I did I did have one other question, and I feel bad that I'm the only one speaking out, so I apologize. On page 13, where it talks about financing and it talks about possible assistance from the city for financing. Is that something else that we're going to discuss? I know when they originally talked about this, when I was talking with some people on the Economic Commission, I said, what does that mean? You know, the city's not in the banking business, you know, type thing. So.
And I think that's sort of up to whatever money happens to be available, whether that's potential home funds, you know, federal funds that are available, or I think this group could also explore, and I know there was a discussion about this, you know, explore reaching out to banks in order to put kind of a loan program together that would be available. So it's not necessarily through the city, but working with the city as sort of an intermediary to, you know, make those connections.
Jordan, I can speak to that, you know, there's been some, you know, basically it was, if we can help identify and make it easier to have access to funding just by utilizing the relationships that the board or the city might have with banks that might be more amiable to loans, then at some level they're getting a volume discount by knowing the area and that kind of thing, and taking some of the risk away from them. I know that that's been used in the 12 Bucks West program, which was not a 353 or was that part of the 353 program or not?
It was not, but they did most of their work within the Fairmount Carlisle 353.
So I know that there's been some banks that have expressed specific interest in different kinds of home loans, but I think we got to be a little bit careful about that in terms of the home loans that the loans that might be available and the restrictions that sometimes puts on, you know, on people that are at a certain level of income that wouldn't qualify for those types of things. And that just kind of depends on what the goals are for the.
Okay. All right. Well, if I don't hear any other questions, I'll move on here. So the next piece of it that I sent you guys the other day were the proposed 353 program guidelines. And that's really the document that the city is going to use in order to evaluate project proposals when they come in. You know, it really, that drills down into what kind of projects are allowable, what kind of projects are required right up front as part of a project to meet those blight remediation things like taking care of damaged driveways or sidewalks and things like that. So I just kind of wanted to give you a broad piece of that so you're all aware. That will be something that I want you guys to all kind of review in more depth between now and the next meeting, with hopes of either having you guys okay with those guidelines and a vote to approve those so we can kind of move forward with taking applications, and or with some, you know, thoughts for minor changes and improvements to that document for next time.
I don't think I got that document. I have the agenda and the final.
And then I think I attached that to the meeting invite. And if not, I can go ahead and send that all back out. And that my intent was just to let you guys have a look at that, but I will make sure that you all see that after this meeting. And that's, I really want that to be your homework to go through and kind of look at that document for, you know, minor changes. And like I said, that had been reviewed by both the EDIC and City Council. That doesn't mean that it can't be tweaked in minor ways, but I think we would want to stay away from major changes to that document.
Jordan, you call that the guidelines?
Yes, the program guidelines.
I may be I may not have it either. I have sunshine law. I have the plan. I have the charter.
The agenda.
Yeah.
Well, you can send it out. Yeah.
All right.
Jordan, let's go ahead and resend that out to
Yeah.
everybody.
We'll get that sent
Pass
out.
on.
That sounds good. And then, so moving on to kind of the role of this board going forward. As we mentioned, the first thing you guys will need to do is approve those guidelines so that we have a working document so that city staff can start taking in those applications for 353 tax abatement. Another major role I think is going to be in some respects marketing this program, or at least being a good steward of, when people ask, being a resource, directing them to city staff for questions, for making application, all of those kind of things. And then the major piece is you will all vote to, approve each application for individual property tax abatement. So after we receive an application, we will present that to you, and then you guys will actually be the group that votes to approve that or deny that application.
Do we have any marketing materials or anything that the others have used, the other 353s have used at all? Or was that something that was really maybe even done before social media and things like that?
Not that I'm aware. Go ahead, Tom.
Oh, it was long before social media. I think they would do sign blitzes. So they would have these real estate type signs that they would place out, tax abatement available, so it's a different time now. We get to think creatively. We have social media and other technology that we can use. So the sky's the limit. Of course, Jordan and I are not the most tech savvy, but we'll do our best. And if there's others on the board that want to help out, we would be more than happy to accept that.
Yeah, and I know one of the other things that they did in the past were neighborhood meetings and public meetings of that sort. That's obviously challenging now, but to the extent that we can do something virtually, I think we are willing to work with you guys on that. So I will probably continue to have that on the agenda going forward as ideas, collecting your ideas. If we want to put some paperwork together, some marketing materials, I will work to do whatever I can, knowing that it's going to be done by, as Tom said, someone who kind of knows what I'm doing, but not really. So, but yeah, so we'll have to work through that. But yeah, that's going to be an ongoing role that we want you guys to play. So next I have decisions for next meeting. And that's going to be, I didn't want you guys to all, I don't know how many of you know each other or don't know each other, but didn't want you guys to necessarily have to elect officers tonight. So do want to get on your radar for next time. We will be electing a chair, a vice chair, and then I would like to have a secretary treasurer, potentially someone who is willing to take minutes and kind of write those up for the group. So be thinking about those roles, and if I don't have a problem if you want to volunteer yourself, or if you all want to get together and decide who you're nominating, that's up to you guys. But so that'll be on our agenda for next time. And we did talk about this too, that window for taking applications for work that's already been done. We'll want to get that decision. I don't, if you are all agreeable to taking applications for work that was completed after January 1st of 2019, that is what the city assumed, but that, is obviously a decision that's up to you guys. So we'll have that on the agenda for next time for discussion.
I'm sorry, I'm asking again, was that January 19 or 20?
19. So that would be.
Oh, because you said you did go back before, if it was completed, even before this had ever been approved by the council.
That's correct. Yep.
If I'm correct, the approval was sometime in October?
It was December of 2019.
19?
Yeah.
So with that being said, we could go back to January 1st of that calendar year.
Right.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes. And I think the thinking is that because this was discussed so openly in the public, we had a lot of people come to us and say, man, I just did work on my property and, now I'm not eligible. So to the extent that, they're still going to have to, produce all the paperwork that shows the work that was done, that it was done with, you know, building permits and all of that kind of good stuff as they would for a new project. It just gives people a little bit of flexibility if they've potentially already done something. But again, that'll be up to you guys. That's just what the city was thinking when we set out on this mission over a year ago, 2 years ago.
And that, going back that one calendar year, like Jordan was talking about, was the same thing that those other area 353s had done. So Midtown, Truman Road, Fairmount, Carlisle, and St. Clair Park, they all went back a period of time. It was generally about a year. And that was to get the ball rolling on the change to the neighborhood. So something to keep in mind.
The property tax abatement doesn't go back to that year, though. It's only going forward, correct?
Correct.
Another item to be discussed at the next meeting or at a future meeting, if we don't get to it, is the idea of application fees. I know for other 353s, we do require sort of a minimal, I don't know, Tom, is it $50 or $75 application fee? I think 75.
I can't remember if it's 50 or 75, yeah.
But it's, you know, a fairly minimal fee that, in our opinion, it makes sure that people are serious about the project and we're not, you know, taking in applications for someone who hasn't actually put the thought and time and effort into it. However, the issue that it raises is we then have this pool of money and that you as a board could do something with. It's just a question of, it's never probably going to amount to a whole lot of money, but what would you want to do with that? Maybe it's, you know, continued marketing, maybe it's something else. So that's just a discussion or an item to be thinking about if you want to weigh that balance between having a minimal fee that shows someone serious versus, you know, making it the barrier to entry a little lower and not having money to, you know, to do something with.
If in the other instances where it was used, was it ever refundable under any circumstances?
No, it was not.
Okay.
So they paid the fee, and the fee stayed with the redevelopment corporation, even if the project did not go forward.
And as we are a corporation, are there specific bylaws, or are those defined by 353? I haven't read the statute or anything. I think that just establishes the concept of the 353, not that we as a corporation, you know, are we incorporated? If I went out to the SOS website and looked, are we a true
We are
corporation?
not currently, but I think that is something that we will have to do, especially if we decide to take that application money. We'll have to open a bank account and all that good stuff. So I know that they definitely have those, you know, have those accounts set up. So yeah, we would have to work through that process as well.
Yeah, both the Fairmont,
well,
Carlisle, and Midtown, or and St. Clair Park, they're both corporations. They have that checking account because they collect the fees, and then each year they register with the Secretary of State. So those are all things that you would have to consider.
And are they, and again, I'm not sure when they were set up. Were they set up as C Corps or LLCs?
We're not sure, but we'll get you that information. So how about when
I can look it up.
Jordan?
That's fine. Yeah, I can look it up on the SOS. That's fine. That's not a problem. I'm familiar with that, you know, setting up businesses and that type of thing. I was just curious, but I'll look at what they are.
And I'll go back and look too, because I know technically they're redevelopment corporations. So I don't know if that's, you know, something special under the law or not. So I'll just have to go back and look at what those legal entities are. So my last point, we've talked about this approval of those 353 guidelines. Laura, you had a question? No. Okay. And so any questions or thoughts on those? Those are just kind of seeds I wanted to plant for thinking for next time. All right. So with that, I did want to try to pin down a next meeting date. so we can follow up on some of these topics. I was thinking something in approximately 10 to 14 days, so maybe a little over a week to 2 weeks. Seems like this group is probably going to need to meet in the evening like this. If 5 o'clock is a little too early, we could always do 5:30 or 6. You guys just kind of let me know what thoughts you have on that.
I'm good with 5 o'clock or 5:30 or whatever in that. Tuesdays I have library board meetings, so every third, whatever. So if we can stay away from Tuesday nights, that's a little helpful for me.
Okay. Does anybody have any other ongoing meetings or things that I should stay away from? I know I've got meetings in the evenings, some, occasionally, so I'll have to work around those too. But thinking maybe if Thursdays work, potentially a Thursday evening at 5 or 5:30 in about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That would potentially be something like August 3rd.
September.
September 3rd.
Oops, you're right. We are already in this. Sorry about that. September.
Jordan, you go back in time.
That's it.
No, thank you. Let's not do that. September 3rd at 5 or 5:30, and I will, if I don't hear any objections, I will get that calendar invite out and I will get that posted publicly. Okay. And as always, I am available to answer any questions between then and now. I really look forward to working with you all. It's going to be a learning experience for all of us. So, hey, it'll be fun.
Absolutely. Good meeting.
All right. Great. Thank you all for your time, and we will talk later.
Thank you.
All right. Everybody stay
y'all.
well.